Welcome everyone to another Black Tides Black in Data Week presentation. Right now, we're going to hear from Katarina Hoger, and her presentation is Generating Images Using Image Color Data. Katarina recognizes individuals struggling to identify and find joy in the connections between themselves, other people, and their environments. And as an intermedia artist working across various media, Katarina often creates work that includes a data-based computer-generated component. So let's go ahead and hear from Katarina.
Thank you. Okay, so hi, I'm Katarina Huger. I had an interesting progression to what I'm currently doing. So I studied math originally. In 2013, I graduated from Harvey Mudd and ended up going straight to grad school. I had done a project that convinced me that I really wanted to be an operations research scientist. So I went and got a degree in operations research. And after that, I started to pursue a bit of things in industry, taking a few different types of jobs. I didn't actually get any in operations research. I got various other things related, computer science, a little bit of data analytics, but not too much. And I ended up teaching kids to creatively code after school. And because of that, I really decided I wanted to teach adults how to creatively code after school. I really liked the teaching part. And so I went and got an MFA because an MFA is to teach creative coding, you generally need a terminal degree in the arts. And an MFA is a terminal degree in the arts. So I went and got a terminal degree. And I'm still not teaching adults to creatively code, but I'm now, I'm an artist a lot of the time, and I'm also a freelance software engineer. So I get to do a lot of fun things. And in my freelance software engineering life, I work as a contractor for a program called Mathematica. There's something in the chat. Oh yes, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'll try to answer questions when they come up. Because we're such a small group. If the group gets really large, I will uh-oh. I'm gonna just restart. Sorry, I've skipped too many slides. It's not going back. Why? Whatever. Okay. Okay. So in my freelance software engineering life, I am basically creating content for people who want to learn how to use Mathematica software for a Mathematica reseller. And then as an artist, I currently am really getting a lot of joy out of making interactive installations where I can't sell them, but people go in and as they move through space, they're triggering, their motions trigger sounds. So I have to do a bit of data analysis with the camera, take images from a camera, do a little data analysis on them, just enough so that I can figure out how to change the sounds based on how they're moving. It's both technically fun and it's also really, really fun on a personal basis because it's fulfilling to see how people come to life in this sort of situation. So this is some of what happens when I'm processing the data for the situations where people are moving through space. This is what the camera would see. It sees basically the changes in for like how pixels change between frames. And then I can use that information to control playback of sounds in different ways. So this is more something I did with Mathematica. You can basically do a lot of things. You can use input. So you can use a camera as input. You can use outside input to make art. And you take the data live and use it to make art. You can take data itself and just use that as an input into something that creates something beautiful. This is basically me taking temperature data and just making an interesting visual display using it. And there were rules I followed with mapping, but it wasn't really, this one is not necessarily an easy to read and understand map. It was more because it's more because it's pretty. I might be tweaking in the future to make it actually usable too, but right now it's more because it's pretty. And then this was an exploration that I was calling the Reconstituted Media Project. And that is basically an exploration of what happens when I take existing data and try to just tweak it just a little bit and then kind of put it back into the world. Sort of similar to how it was, but just modified, and see how you changing like the basic constituents of the data and the original thing changes your experience of the final output you'd see. So the bottom is basically what we're going to be working with today in the workshop. How do you make, we're not going to make this final product. We're going to do some of the intermediate steps. Okay, so some things that happened. This is basically similar to the first picture. I had a picture of lotus flowers and basically ran it through I had a picture of lotus flowers and ran it through a piece of a code that I wrote. This one was a piece of processing code, and basically I put circles in different locations with different colors based off of the original picture information. I then moved on to other shapes and using multiple pictures at the same time. So this picture down below is actually using multiple, it's lines instead of circles. I started with circles, but then it went on to lines. And this is 3 different pictures superimposed together to make a very interesting graphic. This up above is one picture, but it's basically made up of different shapes, circles, squares, lines, rectangles, overlaid on top of each other. And then below, this one is squares, mixed, moving squares actually. So this is this is an animation. It's just, and basically these squares will move, and because there's a background image behind it, it changes what you see, how you see the image. Basically, this was an exploration in how does just taking these pieces of information change the result. So there's something in the chat. Okay. Yes. So, what's happening is it's taking one image. This was the original image for my cover page, right? And using we're going to get different variations of it because we're going to take, say, this area where my mouse is, we're going to take that area, we're going to take the color from that location, and we're going to blow it up and then place a dot down there. And that dot corresponds to that dot, the original information up there. And this one's all dots, this one's all squares. It changes the image just a little bit to see it in squares versus circles. And then this one here is actually what we're going to be making in the workshop because it's the intermediate step. It's how do you go from here to just extracting the data and putting it down and making an image with it. And then once you have the image, you can start processing things and making, adding rules and then using different shapes and all that stuff. And adding rules, adding different shapes. That's how I got the bottom 2 images, but this is the first step. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go from here to there. Okay, so the information we need to understand are what's making up the image. So what sort of data is in an image, right? So the first thing is each image is made up of pixels. So I tried to simulate what pixels look like, except these are obviously far too big, right? The pixels are really tiny, but as they're the basic building blocks of digital images, they are located in space and they've got colors. So they're located in a grid system and they've got colors. This original image, I think, had like, well, when I rescaled it, it had 1,000 pixels across and 750 pixels down. So each image, this bottom image, can be broken into red, green, and blue. So each of those pixels has a red value, a green value, and a blue value, as well as something we call an alpha value. That's a transparency. And so when we look at an image on the computer, it's got a little bit of red light coming through, a little bit of green light coming through, and a little bit of blue light coming through to make this color for the leaf, this green color for the leaf. It's this much red, it's this much green, and this much blue. And they all come together to make that green right there. And so because of that, when we're working with image color for the computer, usually whatever system you're using to analyze image data, they'll take this image and they'll represent this as a matrix of some sort, right? And then you can go down a row and across a row, and you can say this dot here, this green dot here, or square, this green square here, has this red value, this green value, this blue value, and this alpha or transparency value. So many systems will track location where you are on the screen with going down, kind of as if you're reading a matrix, right? You're going down the screen. So this is positive y. This is y equals 0. This is y equals maybe 100 or 750, and then this is the x-axis, right? And so this is x equals 0. This is x equals, say, 1,000. And so you can find a pixel, you can know how far down it is, you know how far across it is, and then you can extract the color location, color data. So how do we make our end image? You make your end image by knowing, we have to know like the basic concepts I just talked about, but then you have to know, how do you actually draw in software, your chosen software, and then how do you extract your image data in that chosen software, and then how do you process the data and just kind of make an image, right? That's the last part. So we're going to set up a drawing area, choose an image to use. For this process, because it gets rid of fine details, I personally don't believe in choosing images that are too have too many fine details, but like lots of big bold colors, or lots of big bold colors are fine. Shapes can be fun, just so long as it's something that changes easily. That's the goal. Then we extract the image data, and then you want to iterate to draw. So your drawing is, the computer is going to draw in a process, and it's going to be like, choose some place on the image, take the color from that space in the image, and then follow your drawing rules. So if I was drawing circles, draw a circle based off of the color at that spot is how you'd follow the drawing rules. And when I said prepare to follow the drawing rules there, I mean, there are different ways you can prepare. You could say, if it's at this spot and it's been this long, you can't draw there. You could make any sorts of drawing rules, but the simplest rule is just draw. All right, and then you repeat indefinitely, potentially. If you want to stop at a certain time after a certain number of times of drawing, then that's another way to run it, and it changes your results. So actually, what the difference was between my original picture and in the workshop versus my original picture and what happened in the project I've worked on my own is in this workshop, I only have one size shape I'm drawing. I don't change the size, the shape or the shape sizes at all. And I kind of draw indefinitely. So it's not really, this is a still from an animation where it's just basically putting dots on forever. And in the other pictures I showed you, there was a process I used. I made a set of rules where I said, okay, I've run this program this many times. I've reached a certain check, and the check would tell me, should I continue looping? Should I not continue looping? And it would say eventually, stop looping, make a new shape, and draw again. Start from the beginning until you hit the check again, and do this so many times. So that's how this project is working. So in this workshop, like I said, we're going to talk about taking a picture and going to here. And I have a sample picture for everyone to use, but please feel free to use your own images as well. So we're going to be using P5JS because it is free, it's online, you won't need to set up anything at all. So I have included in the chat, I loaded the talk into the chat. I don't know if you have it. If you can, let me know if you can't get it. I'll load it up again. But you can click on the links in the chat. And so if you click on this link, it brings you to P5JS, the P5JS online editor. And that is what I'm going to be using with. So you can move together with me, or you can move at your own pace. I'm going to continue talking and hopefully conversing with other participants. But you can read along with the slides that have the process on it. And I would love to see what everyone does. Actually, Lauren, is everyone allowed to share screens, or is it just me as a presenter?
I don't. I think everyone can. Can anybody
Okay.
confirm that they share screen on their
Stop
Zoom?
sharing briefly so we could check that. Yeah. But yeah.
Can anyone confirm that they see the share screen button on their Zoom? Maybe they can't. Maybe they don't see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that they can't. So that's fine. Oh wait, Jatara says yes, she can see it. Great, thank you so much. All right. So when we get to the end, let's see how it turns out. But like I would love to see what everyone does, and I'd love to see it through screen sharing, but we could also just post it to general in the Slack. I have timed a comment to go at 3 p.m. So at you can like just post it to the results thread on the comment. Okay. So my inspiration for this is honestly this code by Dan Schiffman. Dan Schiffman is the guy who made he has a series teaching people how to do creative coding with it's called the Coding Train. And he has a very small example here that shows people how quickly and easily you can do something that looks like pointillism. He's calling it pointillism because you're drawing dots based off of a background picture. And if this one's very reactive, so like it's based off of if you move your mouse, you draw bigger circles, and if you move your mouse again, you draw smaller circles. So this is a lot of fun to play with. But it's based off of not P5JS, which I'm using, but it's based off of processing, which is based out of Java. So you like it basically runs on your computer. There's a whole lot of setup involved. And truthfully, this is what I generate most of my pictures with, but it's not good for workshops if people don't have it already set up on their computer. So, and this is like a little bit more sophisticated of an example than what we're doing. All right. Let's close that again. Okay. And if you are interested in learning to creatively code, please check out Dan Schiffman's The Coding Train. This is about Dan. That's the coding train. And it's like he's been doing this for years, like I don't know, at least 10 years. Just you can look at all the videos about creative coding. Okay. So we're using the P5JS editor. There's something in the chat. Yeah, he is great, isn't he? Yeah. Okay, so we're using the P5JS editor. I have a saved account, so let's briefly. I have an account, and I need to. I think was it this one? Yeah. Okay. So I have an account. I will open up a new editor tab here so I can follow along with you guys. But since I have an account, see, I can save my sketches, I can save my collections, my assets, settings, whatever. That's all there. I can also go in here and open up old files, current files, whatever. That's what happens if you make your own account. We are going to, okay. Okay, so you can make your own account. You can also just do this in the browser. And I think it should work if you just do it in the browser without saving. Just if your computer freezes for any sort of thing, if it freezes or whatever, then you'll lose all your work. So I recommend taking let's take 2 minutes and everyone make an account if you don't have one. Yeah. And ask me if you have questions. All right. Can I get, I guess, a show of some sort of emojis just to see that, or maybe something so that I can see that I can move on, to, yeah, in the chat is good. Oh, great. Thank you. Think I'm going to assume it's okay to move on unless someone says stop. Wait. Okay. So, yeah. That is great. That is awesome. Okay, yeah. So the point is I can move on. So, okay. So how do we execute the code? You literally press this little pink button here that's there. You press that pink button and execute the code. and you get this little gray dot. So that's how you execute it. Try it. On my screen here, if I execute it in this empty document, that's what I get. It was, you can reset it, reset, refresh, run it. So, and basically these are comments. The backslash star backslash is multi-line. This is a single line comment. So this is, I think, one of the hardest parts of this exercise. You have to know how to load files. So at the top left corner of your sketch, there's going to be this little arrow here. You click on it and it turns the other way. And it also turns pink at some point in time. And then you see files. And so I'm going to show you the slides, and then I'm going to show you with the actual document. So then you click on, so once it's here, right, you see this little plus sign, you click on that plus sign, and a create folder thing pops up. I called my folder assets. Oh, sorry, there's a drop down. The drop down says create folders, and then from there I made created a folder called assets. Okay, so I'm going to show you that part. So we're here. I clicked on this. You can click and toggle it back and forth. And then you click on this and you can create a folder. This folder is called assets. And so then we're going to store, we need to upload a file. So you click on the arrow to the right of assets, you click on upload file, and you drag your image over. So you can find your own image. I'll give you a minute, 2 minutes to find an image. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Some images might be too big. I recommend less than 1,000, or sorry, less than 100 well, whatever KIB stands for, that particular unit. A kilobytes also works, but it's not, if you make them too big, P5.js freezes. You can use whatever, well, most any size in the processing version, but in the P5 version, you need to like pay attention to like what your internet capacity, account capacity is. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So here, oops, we already have the folder. I'm going to asset, I'm going to upload. I'm just going to take this folder file. Okay. So know your name of your file. It's right there. You can find it. You can see it. All right. So now we're going to load our file. So I'm going to just actually, I think, I don't know if that'll work. I think this will work. Okay. That's kind of small. Okay. So, all right. What I'm going to do here is normally in P5.js, you don't need to use preload. Preloads are if you have really big things like sound files, images. So you can add comments up above. This is the workshop. So let's just do that. I'm just saying that's the Black in Data week 2024, 2024, and we're going to load I'm going to call this the image generating workshop, and I'm gonna say this is part 2. It's loading images. So for preload is letting us load large amounts of data, because once the if we load while once it lets us load before we need to start doing any processing, basically. So like if you need to process the data and it's not there, you can't process the data, and it creates you do not have to create a folder. So sorry, I missed these questions. Great. So you do not have to create a folder called assets. If you do not create the folder called assets, I'll show you what the difference is. You just need to load your image, right? So I'm going to do it with assets first, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like without. So I'm making a in my preload function, I'm saying load image. It keeps everything neater if you say this. You use assets. So you say load image, assets, flower, pink, or whatever your name is. Now, the only difference is if you do not use the assets folder, and I'm a big fan of just running to make sure the code's working. The code's working because the same thing's happening. Great. So if you do not use the assets folder, it's not really the end of the world, because we're only going to work with this one asset, right? So if you have a lot of stuff. So I'm commenting that out, running it, and oh, well, it's not working for me. The reason why it's not going to work for me is because my image is in the assets folder, right? But if I didn't have the image in the assets folder, you can just put the image name there and it should work. Fetch failed. So for Jessica, when it says the image, okay, so when it says fetch failed, can you potentially take a screenshot and share it? I am a little confused here, because I don't know. I might have seen this error before, but I don't remember. I can tell you that the image does not have to be high contrast. Can you post it? Is it possible to post it to this chat?
I think you can attach screenshots to the chat. Yeah.
Thank you.
You can
Yeah.
make it. Mhm. In fact, if you can't see how to attach, there's the little file.
Oh yeah, there's a little file on the bottom.
Yeah, to attach in the chat.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see here. Failed to fetch. Assets signed. What happened here? Actually, I wonder. I think I might have gotten a similar error. Nope. No, that's loading the image. Okay. Jessica, would you be willing to raise your see what I'm doing with the console here? You can make it bigger, you can drag it up. Would you be willing to do that again? Just drag it up and let us see the whole entire error message. Awesome. Um, for this exercise, it's probably best to have the image to be on the site, and I will add my example image to the site to the chat just so we have you have an image you can use too. Yeah. That at least I think should really work because yeah, okay, so failed to fetch that main default. Yeah, your image, it shouldn't necessarily matter if it's larger than the canvas right now, but there might be something going on with like maybe it shouldn't load if it's too large. That's why I'm a little confused. Load image. It does look like there's some error. Yeah, please try my image and see if something else, if it still works or it doesn't work, that's a problem. Yeah. That might also be it. I do think though some of it's done locally on your computer. So it might be if it's your VPN, it might be I guess yeah. It might be because it's trying to reach. Okay, so we're going to go into P5's backend for a minute just so you can see this. So if you click on Sketch, can I? You click on Sketch here, like they've also got like your index.html. So you're getting these Cloudflare errors, and so that might actually be the problem. Like it might not be able to reach these for some reason. We're not usually supposed to touch this area of the code, so like mostly you ignore this area. But since we're in this side, the sketch files, and to get our picture, you can also see what's happening in the index. But the file we use most of the time is called sketch. So we're going to go back to the sketch. Yeah. Well, luckily you can try along at home too, because so long as you have the slides, you'll be able to basically copy everything again. Okay, so let's all right, so what's happening next is we're loading the image. So you know it loaded properly because whoops. You'll know when it loads properly because you can basically see it on the side. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to we already loaded the image, but we need to see that it actually like shows up. So I like centering my images because it's easy to tell where things are happening. So I'm just gonna set image mode to center. And oh, there's a thing in the chat. Oh, great. I'm glad it's working without Cloudflare. Excellent. All right. And so image display. So remember we named our image img up there. That's because there's a function that we're going to use later called image. Img and we're resizing the image with resize. And I'm just making the same size as my canvas. My canvas is 400 by 400 here, so I'm going to say width. It's going to have the same width as the canvas. It's going to say the same height, width and height as the canvas. So and that does no good if you can't see it, right? So we're going to say image img. That image is the function that displays an image. img is our current image, right? And then we're going to say width divided by 2 and height divided by 2. We're centering it. So we're saying display this image that we've resized to be the same width as height, and we're displaying it from its we're pinning it from its center using image mode center, and we're pinning it to the center of the screen. So pin it to the center of the screen, display there. And and so now if you run it, you're actually going to still see that square of gray, which is okay. Yeah, so I got that square of gray, which I'm not a big fan of. But the reason why we're getting it is because there are two functions here, right? Or there are a few functions here. We've got preload, which was to just load the image beforehand. Setup sets up the area for drawing, and then draw is actually going to keep on looping. It loops and basically it's just going to run again and again. So if we comment that out for now, because we haven't really looked into that yet, that will load our image. So this is what I'm going to call I called it part 2 because it's really like the first part was just understanding like what's P5 and all of that. So this is part 2. And we're going to make a new file. Make sure you save. Or if you don't have it, you don't have an account, that's okay. What I would do is I'd open a new tab and just like I think this should work. Just copy and paste the link into a new tab. Because if you refresh or anything, can I get that back? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I have my new tab. I'm just gonna paste. Oh, well, somewhat. I think you're not the only person who's having Cloudflare issues then, apparently. Cool. So this is an old version of Cloudflare or P5. Okay, so we've got you've got your old file, you've got your new file. So in this new file, we're going to be working on basics of drawing. Okay. Oh, that did not turn out so well. Well, that's okay. This is what I have the working example for. So in the setup, oops. All right. We need to let's just okay. Great. Okay. So in the setup, we're changing. I just wanted to show you can change your canvas size. I don't really care what it's to, but just to see you can, it's now a different size than it used to be. Or I'm going to make mine really tiny. Doesn't matter. You can make it non-square. I'm just sticking with square. So because it shows well if you want to it's easy to share and when it's a square, basically. So we changed we had modes earlier, and we changed the image so that you had, when you placed it places, you'd place it from the center. For this in general, I tend to place everything from the center, so I'm going to show you how to draw your circles and ellipses from the center. So we're going to use ellipse mode center. And so this means that when you're defining an ellipse, you define it by its X position, so somewhere this way, its Y position somewhere this way, and then you define how wide it is and how high it is. So that's gonna be how you define your ellipses, as opposed to like X1, what is it? It's two from two what are those, two focal points? We're not doing the two focal point thing. Yeah. Okay. And we're also not drawing it from like the top left corner and then like guessing, like nothing weird like that. Center and width and height is good. So I don't like adding strokes to things, but you don't have to do this, but I'm going to just say, I'm going to styling, no stroke. I think, yeah. I mean, you can add strokes to things. You can do only strokes. That is totally an option for when you're doing your own, totally on your own. And actually, I encourage trying these things. You can get really cool results. So I'm changing the background color to black. So remember how I mentioned how like red, green, and blue combine. So no red, no green, and no blue is going to be black. And so all colors have 4 channels. All color commands have 4 channels, and black is 0, 0, 0. And the 4th channel, I'm going to just say make it fully solid. For backgrounds generally are fully solid anyway, for the most part. But I'm going to still make it fully solid. So in draw, I want to draw something at an ellipse at the center, slightly off shape ellipse. So I'm going to just choose a fill color just to show that there are other colors. I'm going to say 0, 255, 0. So that should be a green. And you know what? I'm going to make this 200. Not that that makes a difference because it's on a black background. We're not going to be able to, it's not going to be next to something else, but this is going to be green and it's going to be semi-transparent here. And I'm going to draw an ellipse. So this is green, semi-transparent. And you know what? Okay, cool. And I'm making an ellipse, and half of 200 is 100. So I'm going to just change that. I'm going to say height divided by 2, so we can show that it's going to be centered even if I use height instead of like hard coding it to 100. So width and height are built-in variables. 100, and I'm saying a width is 100, and I'm going to say the height is like, I don't know, 75. So it should look like a jelly bean sort of shape. Yeah. If I make this, you know what? That's good. That's basic drawing of ellipse. And so my example, if you click on these links, that's like gives you the example. What is useful here though, is that there are other shapes you can use. Oh, so if you click on shapes, I'm sorry, that didn't work. There are all sorts of things. There are arcs, there are ellipses, there are circles. Ellipses and circles, the only difference is the ellipse, you can technically, the circle you only need to say one radius for, or sorry, one diameter for, but the ellipse, you have to give it a width and a height, right? So you can draw lines, you can draw points, you can draw quadrilaterals. That's harder for this exercise. You can draw rectangles. Rectangles are pretty easy, squares are pretty easy, and triangles make this a little difficult, but ellipses, like you can literally add rect mode center to the top here. Mode center to the top, and you can let's make a second. We're gonna make a red shape here. And then we're gonna move on because we want to get to the more fun part. Or let's make this like magenta, well, orange, yellow, 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 red and green. I'm gonna make this a rectangle, just so you can see an example. You can sort of see both. Maybe I'm gonna make this 100 as opposed to 200. So now you can see both of them at the same time. Because the yellow and the well, you can see them. Let's see, let's change this to by 4. And then, okay, great. That's a much better example. You can see the difference between the two. So, that error popped up because I automatically hit save. We're not saving. Okay. Now, we just need to be able to extract the data from that picture we have here, and then we can take these shapes we now know how to draw, and we can just kind of place them, give them fill colors from the picture, and then place them in spots. So that's what we're going to do next. We don't need to read all the code comments right now. You can go back and read them. They're basically telling you like where I got inspiration from and how this works. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this part 2.1 file, save. Okay. I'm going to go back to my part 2 and well, I'm going to just copy all the code from part, you know what, I'm going to just continue over part 2. You can just continue over part 2. It still runs. Okay, so we have our preload. We have our canvas. I'm gonna make this a little wider so you don't have to. Okay. We have image mode center. I'm gonna also say ellipse mode center. If you want to use rectangles instead, use rect mode center. You can add both of them too. Actually, I'll just add them both. Right. So this centers ellipses, centers rectangles. All right. And then, so the key in this example, is actually, so I'm going to run the end code for you. You see how it's kind of just building up on top of each other? You get your end result by just like layering. And so we only want to set the background once, and we just want to keep on adding things. Like if you were like dripping paint or dropping paint or whatever, you're not going to continue adding a new background every time. If you wanted to track like motion and make it look like dots were moving across the screen, you'd have to update the background all the time. But if you just want the front to change, you don't really need to do that. So we want the front to change. All right. So because of that, I only need the background to happen once, and therefore, if the background's only occurring once, happening once, it can happen inside of setup. Because setup only runs once. So And so this is based in P5.js, right? But you can take this process and use it for any software. Yeah. Or any program you want, any programming language, you could do the same thing. It just, you might use different commands, right? So, this one, I don't like strokes, but so I'm adding them. I'm adding no stroke for styling. But you can totally add strokes. That's on that slide, the slide that happened, the previous slide with details about shapes and whatever. Stroke details are on there too. All right, so we're going to continue on in setup. There are a lot of variables. Like we don't have to set them, but I like setting them because I don't know, it keeps things semi-consistent. It makes it easier to change them later. So I was using ellipses. So I'm giving them a certain width or girth. Call this width. Giving them a starting position. Starting position doesn't matter so much, except I want to be able to access the X and the Y. And so I'm just making them, this is just one way to make them global. So I can access them in setup. I can access them outside in any function I want. And same thing with Y. And we also want global colors, color values, so you can change, check those colors and do whatever you want with them. So I'm just getting the red value. Right now, we don't have a red value, we don't have a green value, we don't have a blue value, but we're going to be able to extract them from the picture. So I'm just going to set them all to 0. Already. And then I'm just setting an alpha value. You can change it on your own, make it change with your mouse position. I don't know. Do whatever you want with it. But right now, because it's an example, you can play with this. I hope you guys play with this later and I hope it's fun. We're just setting a transparency for the beginning. And so that's the end of our setup. I keep on trying to save. Okay. I'm gonna give it, are there any questions? It's a good point to ask questions, answer questions. So then I'm going to move on next into extracting the data. Alrighty. I think we're good. So I'll go on to drawing. So that draw function we commented out before, it's coming back. But the first thing we're doing is we're getting rid of that background. We don't need the background. I'm just gonna actually delete it because we have background up here. And actually, if I run this now, all we have is just that black background. So we want to be able to start adding things. So I want to be able to take an X and a Y. So I'm just going to choose a random X in the picture. Now, location values, to extract things from an array, you need it to be an integer. You need to be able to go like a full set of full set, like, I don't know, full 12 lines down and like 12 lines across, right? So we need an actual real like integer x, we need a real integer y. We can't use like a decimal, or we can't use a float. We just need an integer. So random though returns floats. So because of that, I'm wrapping I want a random number that is somewhere between 0 and the size of the image width, and that's going to be my width, but I'm wrapping it inside of int so that it's an integer. And we're going to do the same thing with y. Just so once we've got the location in our image, we've got to get the red, green, and blue values of that location. And so this is actually one of the differences between, say, doing this in processing and doing this in P5.js. And processing, fairly certain it was in processing. Maybe it was in a different, okay, in some softwares, you've got to like figure out like, instead of storing it in the matrix they use to store the information, you can't get the pixel by its x and y value. You have to get, you have to say, keep track of, I've gone past this many, each for, it's instead of having a matrix, you've got an array, and it's a really long array. It's based off of like, say you had, if you had 100 by 100 size picture, right? That is 1,000 values, but they would actually have 4,000 values in that array. And to say find value 10, the red value of like the 10th thing in the 0th or the first row, the 0th row, you'd have to just kind of go, what the red value, the green value, the blue value, the alpha value for the first thing, then the red value, green value, blue value, alpha value for the second thing, all the way down the line until you hit so this is an area where you need to be careful when you're extracting data, depending on which software you're using, whichever programming language, whatever you're using. Just be careful like how you actually find the index and like find the value. That's what you need to pay attention to there. But this one's pretty easy. It's just X and Y. So I can just say that's the red value is the red, what is red. You could do the same thing to alpha, but we don't need it because it's not a picture that had transparencies. It was a JPEG, so JPEGs don't usually have transparency values. Those are usually from PNGs, and not all of them have transparency values that are useful. Green. So it's image.get green, image.get XY. And then same thing for blue. Blue value is equal to blue. Yeah. All right. And then we're basically almost done here. So now we've got our red, green, and blue values, and then you just kind of like add your fill. Red value, green value, blue value, and then our constant alpha value from when we set our variables up above. And then just draw your dot. And it needs to be at X and Y because that's where it came from, right? And then I'm going to say dot girth. And then I said dot girth times 3, but you can say dot girth again, or you could say whatever you want, right? So let's say I say dot girth, dot girth. Then it gives me a lot of tiny, small circles. And if you hit run, you should be getting results now. Now, the one thing I will say is this is nice, It's fun, it's fast, it's pretty. You can do this with most any picture you choose. But you can do so much more when you like play with the shapes or yeah, you can do with different shapes. You can change the sizes. You can make it react to your mouse motions. You can do whatever you want, right? So let's make it so that you can save. That's the next thing. Let's make it so you can save what you've done so that you can compare and contrast, find what you like better, and share it with everybody. Um, so for saving, it's pretty simple. There are many ways you can save. I like saving on mouse presses. So we're going to go outside of the draw function, and you just say function mouse pressed, and you say save frames. Workshop output. This is going to save it as a PNG file that downloads to your downloads folder. And what I wrote here is so it's going to be called workshop output. It's going to have the file end. It's being saved as a PNG file. If you don't add that, it gets saved as a TIF file. And then you can also do JPEG, or you can do a few other file types. I don't remember all the file types. So this is how many frames should it save per second, because each dot is getting put down is one frame. And there's so many, like, I think the default might be, I don't know, maybe 30 frames, I don't know, maybe 60 frames a second. I don't know exactly how many frames it puts down at once. But the point being, it's putting down more, maybe 15, 10, something. We only want to see one frame and for 1 second, just so you get a snapshot. You don't want to, like, if you want an animation and you want to make a GIF file of these, then of course you can take as many files as you want, and it's going to give you quite a few frames. And yeah, so after you run it with this new mouse pressed command, after you run it, if you want to download, say I want to take a snapshot now, you hover over your canvas and you press click, you click your mouse, and then you see how something popped up in my downloads. That is my last file right there. And that's it. So I think the rest of the time I'm here for questions. Yeah, I'm here to answer questions. You can totally go, but I would love to see, love to help if you like have questions or something's going wrong or whatever. Help you maybe, I don't know. I've run a lot of these, so I can tell you about like color choices or what worked well. I can help you with the shapes. If you want to do fill versus no fill or stroke versus no stroke, we can talk about those. That's really what's happening. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Python. Um, Python, I don't know about internally, but you can do the same thing in processing Python. Yeah. Thank you, Lauren. And I personally would love to see results, is the other part. So if you could save something and post it to the chat, the Slack chat, that might be, is everyone in the Slack? Should everyone be in the Slack? Let's see what happens. Yes. All right. And I guess the one thing I will tell you is that this is fun, it runs, but when you switch to a new screen, it stops running. So if you want to run and generate images, you have to like leave it running and open. Doesn't have to be, it can technically be like hidden off the screen. Um, like you don't have to actually see it most of the time. I guess that killed it. Didn't mean to kill it, but like uh it's the resizing of the screen that's killing it. Okay. Well, you can cover it and it'll still, so long as part of your screen is visible, the whole thing will generate. Oh, good. Yes. This will be, I think kids will love this. Yeah. It's, once you get the initial parts done, it's not so bad. It's lots of fun. And so I'm going to add in something that, um, let's see. What if I wanted to scale, um, let's say we wanted the dot size to change a little based off of where you were. Or I'm going to add a different shape. I'm going to add a rectangle. Okay. Because it's the same. And what if I wanted it to change based off of where I was? So it's similar to the original, right? Um, I guess this is 200 across, 200 by 200. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna make I want to take my mouse position and then divide by 20. Let's just see what happens. And I'm taking the floor of that so that it's always so now I've got different shapes. So you can change you can change it really easily. Really, really easily. Can do fun things with this. And the nice thing about this being online is that if you want to share it, you can of course save it as a file like we just did, download it, save it, right? But you can also, let's say you can share. So you go to File, Share, if you have a saved version here. Um, you can just go share and then you can embed it in a website with this embed. But if I just want to share the result, I just do that, and then theoretically the code should be working. I wonder why it's not working. I think it might be that Cloudflare issue that's acting up. Because in theory, this should usually works. But you can take this and then you can share it with people once it's when it's functional. When it's functional, you can take it, share it with people, show it to people on their phones. And then they can play around with it. Yeah, sorry that's not working. Yep.
If anyone doesn't have any more questions, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
That's fine with me. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. Yeah. Are there questions? If so, please speak. If not, feel free to email me later or put them in the chat or in the Slack. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Katarina, thank you so much. This was a very interesting presentation. Yeah, I know generating art is very not I like it, so it's a thing now. So with tech, so
Yeah,
so very cool.
thank you all. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Yeah,
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
take care. Goodbye.
Bye.